As usual with most of my projects, the day starts with picking up on some chores that I hadn't finished from the day before. This time, before I could pour self-leveling concrete, I needed to be able to control where it goes, and for me, that meant putting the base plates down for the future framing. I didn't have to do any caulking or put any foam around because there's nothing below here, and there's nowhere for it to leak to, and even if it does leak, it's just in the basement. It's very easy to chip off and clean up later. Yes, always prepare, but prepare for your situation. Part of my preparation for this situation was making sure that I could find level very, very accurately. So what I ended up doing was drilling a whole bunch of holes in the concrete and driving some screws partway in. This let me control exactly how high the heads of the screws were, down to probably a 32nd of an inch. In doing the research that I did for this project, and there was a lot of it because I was really scared of it, I found a lot of people saying that self-leveling concrete kind of self-levels, but mostly not really. So I wanted to make sure that I could give it as much help as possible so that I didn't end up spending like $300 on this very expensive concrete only to have it turn out very badly. The other part of making sure that it didn't turn out badly was preparing everything as much as I possibly could. And for me, this meant a lot of vacuuming and a lot of mopping and a lot of sweeping and a lot of cleaning because, as you saw in the last video, I've been making a right royal mess down here, cutting out egress windows, sawing wood, you name it. I've been making a mess down here. So I had to spend a lot of time not only making sure both areas were level, but both areas were clean and tidy. Okay, maybe not so tidy, but really, really, really clean. I mopped both sections twice before I even thought about getting primer on. And then I put primer on. I put a lot of primer on. All of the concrete that I put in over top of the new drains that I put in for the bathroom really, really sucked up the primer. I had to go through 2 whole quarts just for these 2 little areas. And then, of course, I'd forgotten to get the height of the drain in the mechanical room set properly, so we had to take some time at the start of the next day and cut that out and tap in the final drain and make sure it's all glued in place. I know that's not the best use of Santa's time, but when he wants to show up an hour earlier than I'm ready to get to work, this is what he gets to do. We dealt with the mechanical room first because I had never used this stuff before, and like I already said, I was really worried about how it would go. And I wanted to get a feel for how it would go. So we took the room that mattered less in terms of overall finished look, because this is just a mechanical room, and we did that one first. After that, I decided it had to have more water mix in than even the highest end that the package suggests. And then it was just kind of mix and repeat, mix and repeat. Look for the screws. Try to help things get as spread out and even as possible. Final thoughts on this process. As a finished floor, I wouldn't accept it, but that's okay because I didn't buy the finished floor stuff. I bought the underlayment stuff. 2 big things to note. First, I started with using the highest amount of water that the instructions suggested, and it still wasn't runny enough. You can see in the mechanical room, there's a fair bit of a hump in some parts. And I had noticed that it was not self-leveling as well as I thought that it should. So I had Santa put about another 100 milliliters into the mix for the bathroom area. And that turned out a little bit better. I also used more screws in the bathroom area because I was more concerned about the level in the bathroom area. I'm not going to be doing any more finishing in the mechanical room. It just needed to be relatively flat and not look like it's had a big gouge taken out of the concrete floor. For the bathroom, I'm either going to be putting tile down or a vinyl plank or something like that, and I need it to be pretty darn flat. And we got to pretty darn flat, especially considering what it was. In the middle here, it was about 1 inch low. But now you can see we're pretty darn flat. The other thing you can see is that the color pretty inconsistent. It's kind of textures and waves and patterns all over the place, which is fine. Like I said, I got the underlayment stuff, I didn't get the finished floor stuff, so Maybe the finished floor stuff would be better. Who knows? Don't care. If I was gonna do it again, the two main things I would say is definitely more water, even more than the 100 milliliters that we added on top of the maximum that it suggested. And I would do more screws, but I would also do more screws in a consistent pattern. There were a lot of times I found myself squeegeeing and rolling and looking for where's the screw and not necessarily able to find one. And I think that led me to overworking the material a little bit. Next time, I would definitely say I'll be doing a consistent pattern of screws so that every time I'm looking for a screw, I'll be able to know and expect where a screw should be. That'll be much easier for me to say, okay, I know where a screw should be, I can find that screw, I can make things level.